Hey, Superman 1983-7 here. I'm doing a video response to proof of God from logical deduction. There's two parts to this. I watched both parts. It was a great little series and learned lots. The only thing wrong with it is that you're using logical deduction to explain, well, an illogical realm, which would be the supernatural. You're also using science to try to explain it, but the problem with that is science is the study of the physical and natural world. It's nothing to do with the supernatural, entity at all. Loved your explanation on subjective experience, observation, manipulation. It's great that people understand that just by watching it, or even a little bit. The one problem with the tautology is what got me. A tautology, you can't use God in a tautology and say God exists because of, you can't do that. For the simple fact that a tautology is fact-based. It's truth, the truth, and there hasn't been any factual evidence to provide the truth that God exists or God doesn't exist. I can't prove he doesn't exist. The probability of him existing, however, would probably far outweigh him existing. Now, your tautology, because it's not truth-based, then because it's not truth-based, you could call it a contradiction, but the reason I'm not going to call it a contradiction is because a contradiction is always false. Okay? Now, because the grounds of me not being able to prove God exists and you not being able to prove that he does exist, I can't use a contradiction in that statement, because although it's partially false now, it can't be proven either way. So it may not always be false, thus can't be a contradiction. If it's possible for something to be true or false, then it's not a tautology or a contradiction at all. It would be a logical contingent. A logical contingent, but that's also depending on the interpretation of its non-logical symbols. When you go into tautology, there's a mathematical sequence for tautology that would also go into contradictions, and would also go into a logical contingent. You would have to provide the math. You would have to provide the math with the tautology to prove anything, but you can't, because you created the tautology out of non-evidential fact. So, why your first video and your explanation of everything doing with the mind and how it interprets and all that beautiful stuff, all true, it's great, beautiful points, I loved it, but it in no way or form proves that God exists. Now, the only way you possibly could prove God exists would be through quantum physics or quantum mechanics, proof of parallel universes. First, you would have to provide proof that there is parallel universes. Second, you would have to pinpoint the exact parallel universe that God exists in, which would then bring up other questions on who made him. Did he make himself? Did he materialize? What were the conditions that made him materialize, and why did he decide to make our universe? What gave him the knowledge to create a universe when he's in one himself? And if he's not in one and he just materialized, again, going back to the other point, what were the circumstances that made him materialize? Did God create himself? If so, there's way too many questions to ask that can't be answered. Thus, I can't prove. I'm an atheist. I don't believe that there's a God or a higher power, but it's not for me to say that there is or isn't one. A good way for an argument of God, I'm not sure if it would be an argument for God, but you could take the laws of probability. get somebody who's good with it, plus who's good with math, and this to 1 would be the probability of him existing. This to 1 would be the probability of him not existing. Compare the two and see which one outweighs the other. They may, just because of the fact, go towards him not existing, just because of evidence provided, right? Scientifically, you can't create circumstances to put into a formula that would not aid in, the validity of the formula, like adding numbers or circumstances where it could exist that aren't really proven, or they're not even plausible at all. So you could use the law of probability and give us numbers on how he could or could not exist, but that's the law of probability. Logical deduction, to logically deduct the proof of God, you're going to have to probably come up with a far better argument, which I'm sorry to everybody that believes in a higher power, God, Jesus, Yahweh, Buddha, Krishna. I really don't think there's any fact or evidence out there to even provide proof. I'm not saying that your faith is misguided or wrong. I'm just saying that it's plausible he may exist. It's also plausible that he may not exist. It's the only problem I have with it. Like, I love that you put in here and you wanted to have a logical conversation about something, but the only problem with someone of faith arguing with someone of science is the only thing science can bring up is laws of probability, or theory behind evolutionary ascent, or all we can do is things that we know about right now that disprove certain parts of the Bible, right? And then the faith would say, well, the Bible is true because, God says it's God's word, right? No fact base behind that, but we always come to a standstill. We can argue all we want, but it doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't anymore prove that you're right and I'm wrong than me creating this video. The only thing I got out of this video was the first part about the interpretation of the brain and what it's for and what's in between it and what we understand, what we don't understand, what we can sense and what we can't sense. I got all that out of the video, but it hasn't. I'm sorry, but you can't take little things like that and then turn it into an argument for God. It really logically doesn't make any sense. I understand your grounds behind your argument, although false. But anyway, if you want to have a debate on God, I'll have debates on all the gods, or just a higher power in general, a deity. I'm not going to get into Scientology just because that's, although plausible, completely ridiculous. If you do want to get into a debate about religion, will more than happily get into a debate with you. But the horrible thing about the debate is it goes nowhere. We don't come to any conclusion at the end of it. So anyway, if you do want to debate religion or higher power or whatever, then by all means, let's do it. Other than that, great video, and I'm pretty much done. Alright, talk to you later.